All right, we're live, sir. Welcome back. Another week. Merry Christmas. And today's New Year's Eve, right? Is today? Yeah, today's New Year's. So Happy New Year. Yeah. So again, another early morning one. So not whiskey, but coffee.
These are my favorite ones to do.
They are actually nice. Like I'm awake, I'm fresh. I don't have to like. Not that I'm ever like stressed out or like worrying about it, but like it's just like not in the back of my head all day.
Yep.
Yeah, so you recently suggested to me a little light reading, which I have right here, the Richest Man in Babylon. Still have to, yeah, there you go. Still have to finish. So I'm going to get to this. This is going to be next on my reading list. I'm still in the middle of Dune, which, by the way, is a fantastic book. You like that fantasy sci-fi kind of stuff, right? So I recommend it. I wanted to, when I heard the movie was coming out, which was supposed to be this year, I think they just pushed it off a whole year now. I wanted to read it. And it's not what I expected. It's very much more like, almost like political drama, which I suppose is very applicable to today. But it was just not what I expected, and I'm actually very much enjoying it. But anyway, so I'm going to finish that. I'm going to try to knock it out over break. I'm on winter break right now. So I'm going to try to knock that out. And then this bad boy, which you recommended, is on my to-read list next. So you recommended this to me because you said that it really helped you and Christy out, I guess, when you were really starting off, trying to get your finances in order, blah, blah, blah. You want to just kind of like walk us through why?
Yeah. So I guess we should tell everybody that we're going to kind of do like a book study with this until Len's finished the book. I've read it like 8 times.
But, yeah, I'll try to do that quickly.
Yeah. So but I'm going to start off now. We'll kind of start just dipping our toes in today. But this book changed our lives for sure. And to me, it's hands down. If someone was like, all right, I need to read a book about finances, like this is it, because it's the basics and it's the principles, which he says principles over and over again in there, right? It's like you need to understand the laws of money, and it tells them to you, and it tells them to you in a story. And we all know that telling a story is a better way to communicate, and he repeats them over and over. So if you really can understand them, like what good is it to go watch Mad Money or whatever that guy is?
If you have no idea what's going on,
right? Like one of you have no idea.
That's just that's a basic, and to use your own word, because this is something you're always preaching principle. So to use like those, that's a basic principle of just education in general, right? So right. I'm a phys ed teacher, health teacher. I can spout all the health information, anatomy, physiology about your body. If I'm talking to people and they're just like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm not helping anyone, right? So, well, yeah, again, especially now that I'm working with elementary schoolers, you really have to pick and choose your words carefully, because if you're up there, and we've had professors who stand up there in the front of the room and just preach and, pretty much just read from a book or like their notes or whatever. And it's fallen on deaf ears, right? Like you're just like, I have no idea what this guy's talking about, and then it's on you to go figure it out later. Which to me, that's not teaching. That's just getting paid to talk at people, and then they have to go do your job for you.
Private school.
Yeah. So for me, what I was taught, when I was becoming a teacher, and how I found is obviously, and it seems obvious, but you'd be surprised how often it's not put into practice. The point of teaching people is for them to understand it, right? You have to create meaning with something. You can tell people, pieces of information 1,000 times, and if there's no meaning to it, if there's no way for them to connect to it, they're not going to learn it, right? It's the same thing as, memorizing like information for a test, and then as soon as you take the test, it's gone, right? You didn't learn anything. You memorized some stuff,
right?
And now you forgot it, right? And I think that's an example that every single person on Earth probably knows. Yeah. So the fact that you tell me that this guy is putting this into a story, he's putting it into ways that people will understand and will create meaning to people. That to me, first of all, is the most important thing, right? Because
Yeah.
in order to learn, you have to create meaning. Otherwise, what's the point, right?
Right. Well, I think the other thing too is that it's such an easy read. Like a 12-year-old can read the book.
That's also good.
And that makes it help. And to like, and then to I guess go a little farther too with that. Besides, like he even mentions in here, like you have to know how to learn. Like if you don't know the information, like part of your education should be to teach you how to then find the information, right?
Sure.
Like you'll see it. It literally gets brought up in here. I mean, we could probably spend 3 weeks just dissecting the first 20 pages. I mean, that's why I've read it so many times because I'm like, this guy didn't leave anything out. Like aspects of just other areas of life are all brought into this. But the biggest thing is these principles, these foundational principles. Don't worry about how to invest in the stock market if you can't save a certain percentage of your paycheck every month for a year.
Mhm.
Like it's useless for you to try and do that. So there's no book to give you, or don't go watch Mad Money or Gordon Ramsay. Like don't go do all of these things until you've mastered the 2 or 3 fundamental principles of money. And if you can't, that's the biggest thing for me. And then once you do that, oh my God, the sky's the limit. Then read other books. Then do other things. Right? This is the basis. And I don't remember the intro, how many years this thing's been around, but like I'm not the only person that this has brought out of like the depths of
Sure.
despair. I mean, that like the lady who writes the intro to at least the one I have, because I don't know if you have the exact same one. I mean, they're the same book, but like some of them are.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different cover, but
yeah,
it's the Richest Man in Babylon original edition by George S.
Okay, so you have the
Clayson.
original. Yeah. So you have the original one. You're not going to have this lady's new.
Okay.
New,
what does she do? Like little like anecdotes, like.
No, she just writes her introduction basically about how she was broke as shit in her 30s, and she was making $400 a month as a waitress, and now now she's doing pretty well for herself. So, anyways, I think we should jump in, but I think that there was in the beginning of the book. There's one of the things that I think is super important. In one of the quotes was, "We are weary of being without gold in the midst of plenty," and I think that's massively important because if we really look around, there's more than enough everywhere. We think that there's not enough, and it's so illogical. Like, I was actually on the phone with my sister last night. She was talking about how it drives her absolutely bananas when people are saying that there's no jobs. She's like, well, no, there's jobs. You just don't want to do them. Like, those are two very different things. Like, there's tons of jobs. Like, go to Amazon. They'll literally, like, you have a pulse. Amazon's hiring you right now because of how much shit's being shipped.
Yeah.
Like, and then the U.S. military is hiring every day. Like, I mean, there's some they'll feed you.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's always something out there. It's just for whatever reason. And look, I'll just say that I've been guilty of it too. Like when I was looking for teaching jobs, right out of school, I was struggling to find one, right, and to the point where it was starting to cross my mind to maybe find a different avenue, right? Like, I've got a couple people who could have hooked me up with like different jobs, whether it be NJ Transit or blah, blah, whatever. But to me, and again, I'm going to group myself in with these stubborn people. I was just like, no, like I just paid $50,000 for a goddamn degree. Like I want to do what I want to do. So yeah, so I get it. There's always a job. Well, yeah, but the picture I'm trying to paint is there's always a job. Like I'm sure I could have like driven down the street to McDonald's and like got a job. It's a job. It's not a career, but at some point in time, look, I was when I first moved back to New Jersey, I was a pool boy. To be honest, it was actually one of the most fun jobs I ever had. I mean, I was outside all the time, cleaning pools, like whatever. But yeah, like, look, obviously I knew that was not a career, but it was just something I had to
Right.
do for this period of time.
Yeah. And it's funny. I remember the first time I realized there was more jobs than I knew about.
Yeah.
So like where I grew up, there really wasn't a lot. You kind of drove through the area, and
Pennsylvania.
yeah, yeah. And so you basically went to college, and it was like, all right, you're gonna be a doctor or a lawyer or like something, a teacher,
Yeah.
right? Like those are kind of your things.
To get out.
Or yeah, or you're gonna go work at Joy or construction or be a carpenter, a carpenter's union or the steel stuff.
Sure.
And or like guard at the jail. Basically, just the jobs you knew about from literally driving around. Like that was what there was, and that's kind of all I knew. That there really was. And then I think I went to college, and I don't know why it randomly hit me, but I stayed for the credits, probably for a Marvel movie or something, because there's always something after.
At the end, yeah.
I'm watching all of these. I'm trying to read some of them, right? And I'm like, oh my God, there's like 10,000 jobs on this screen right now that I had no idea were things. And I'm like, there is so much more out there if we just opened our...
Think about how many people it goes into taking one movie or into making one movie, right? The credits are like 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
Even if it's like, and look, even if they're like crediting someone who wiped your sneeze on set or whatever, like you're getting paid to do that. Like everyone's getting paid to do these things.
The sneeze wiper, like it's a
sneeze
job.
wiper, yeah, man. Hey, it's your foot in the door.
Right. It's so interesting. But anyways, I digress because we can go on about that. But another quote that I think, and I'm probably just going to quote some of the stuff and then we'll go from there. I think this one was awesome. And he says that in those things toward which we exert our best endeavors, we succeed. Again, it's a book about money, but it's the principle of life. Like, what have you ever put forth effort towards that didn't grow? Like that you can legitimately be like, I gave it everything I had.
Yeah.
And it didn't grow. Nothing. Like, nothing didn't get better because of that. And so I think that's huge. And I took some more notes. But this one's huge. And I think it's good because it lays like the groundation. That's a good word. The foundational groundwork for... I think at the very beginning in the first like 15 pages, part of what he's really trying to come across is that there's more than you think there is, and you deserve a part of it. So lack is just a perception. There really isn't any lack. Like look around anyone's house, even if you're broke and you have probably more than 95% of the world.
So yeah, that's actually something I was figuring we were going to get to, but everyone always talks about the 1% and poverty and blah, blah, blah. And I have my own thoughts on that. To me, and we're not going to really dive, I mean, we could, but to me, again, this is my own personal belief. I really don't necessarily have like the information or the numbers to back this up, but I don't think that we can beat quote unquote poverty. Because to me, all it is, it's a ratio of like the people up here to the people down here. And even if everything shifts up, these people are still down here. Right. And to me, what happens is, all right, so even if, we take the, whatever the poverty line is, was it less than 30,000 a year? 25,000, whatever.
Right.
Even if we bump that up and now people are making 40,000 a year, all that means is now people have more money to spend.
Right.
Which what's going to happen? The market inflates to adjust. Right. So yes, you're technically making more money, but is it actually more money? Is it like, right? Because if everything gets more expensive, then $40,000 is not $40,000 anymore. It's $40,000 with, inflation. So now it really kind of just balances out. So that's one little thing I've just kind of like thought about. And, again, I'm no expert. I don't have the numbers to back this up. But to me, generally, when people have more money to spend and they're spending more money, right, things are going to increase in price because now they can afford them. So,
right. I mean, so I think there's all of that.
Yeah.
To me,
also, sorry, last thing. Also, but when we're talking about, again, like, poverty in America and, like the 1%, if you take that worldwide, everyone essentially, again, I don't want to say everyone, but most people in America are the 1% of the world, right? So poverty in America, again, me and my fiance, we're living comfortably. We have a condo. We both have jobs. Speaking from, my, if you want to say, point of view, point of privilege, whatever.
Rich white man.
Definitely not rich. But that being said, poverty, in America is not poverty in Africa. It's not poverty in Eastern Europe. It's not poverty in South America. Like,
my wife and I went to Haiti, and I've been to Peru.
Yeah,
you're not broke. I promise you.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's all a matter of perspective. Like, you can say, like, oh, like, take down the 1%, and then you're just like, well, are you looking in America or are you looking globally? Because if you're looking globally, you're part of the 1%. Like, so it's all a matter of perspective.
Well, and that's what I think, and we'll get to this too later. I think it's probably in the next chapter, but he talks about when basically in the book, whatever, he talks about how the city was thriving at one point and then all of a sudden it's not. That's how they get to this story of teaching people about money, right?
Okay.
Well, they explain when it was thriving is they were building and spending and all of these things were happening, right? And so money was flowing all over the place and markets were growing and all this stuff, right? But then when there was nothing else to build or cultivate in the midst of the kingdom, the money stopped flowing and poverty set in. And they were wondering why, and they found that all the money flowed back up to the richest men in the city. And so the king is asking why that happened, and they realize it's because those few understood the principles of money, and the rest just spent. They had it spent, you know what I mean? So they never understood. So even to take it one step farther, if the poverty line's 30,000, well, the reason you're not getting out of that poverty line is because you don't understand the principles. So even if I gave you, and he talks about it in the book, $50,000, it would just flee through your hands and no wealth would be accumulated or built from that. Does that make sense? So it comes back.
It does. Again. So it comes back to accountability, essentially. Like, and again, a lot of people don't want to hear this. And I'm not blaming anyone for being poor, because obviously people are born into different situations, people have different situations. But if you don't know how to manage money, if you don't know how to, spend, not spend, invest, whatever, then you're kind of just going to be in this state of limbo and kind of stuck. No matter how much money you make, you're going to think, well, oh, I can spend this much more, or I can do this or whatever. And inevitably, it comes down to you and your spending habits, ideals, whatever, principles. And you're going to inevitably end up, where you end up because you were the one behind the wheel making the decisions.
Well, you never learned it. So I will give that to the majority of people. You didn't learn what's in this book, because if you grew up in an impoverished home, then these principles weren't taught, or you wouldn't have been in it.
Exactly.
School didn't teach you. So if you don't know these, then you can't. To me, it's like, all right, you don't know what you don't know. But now, if you've heard this, and for $8 you can buy the book to get you out of it. Right?
It was surprisingly cheap.
Yeah. Like it's amazing. And if you can be less than broke, my wife and I were there. Like. Theoretically, on paper, we were less than broke.
Yeah.
Because if broke is zero, well, we had a buck ton of student loans. So like we were less than broke.
Hooray, debt!
Hooray, debt! I mean, at one point, and I don't like talking necessarily about the past, not because
but I think it's important because it's. It is. You always talk about we have to learn from history, otherwise you're doomed to repeat it, right? So I think it's important, especially from our own opinions. Like when we talk about health and fitness and stuff like that, I always love to talk about like my past, my history, because I've been through it, I've learned it, I have the experience, and now we can share. So yeah, like go ahead, man. Yeah.
So the reason I don't like so I share it very stingently. I don't like to talk about it often because I don't want those. If you remember way back when we talked about goals and metaphysics, is I don't want to stimulate those old brain cells of poverty.
Sure.
Because I don't want to hold that image. So that's why I choose on a regular basis not to engage in this is where I was, this is where I am. I stick more of this is where I am going forward, but for the purpose of this. There was literally a point when our daughter was younger that we sold her changing table because we didn't have money to buy diapers.
Mm-hmm.
So like we would change her on top of the dryer and or just a table in the house or the floor. So like I get it. And you can come out of it. Like you can get out of this situation that you're in, I promise. But and as this book teaches, which is fundamental principle to everything, in training we call it the progressive principle, but you just have to do a little bit consistently. And if you just do that for a year, and then another year, and then another year, you're going to literally look at your bank account and be like, that's mine? That's my bank account? Because I remember that every day, like, I didn't want to open my bank account because I'm like, God damn it, is it going to say negative?
It's just going to bum me out.
When Christy was pregnant, we didn't have enough money to pay for our power bill because there was like a 3-week break in school and then another week until like we got our student loan check.
Yeah.
And she wasn't going to get one, so we like went from 2 to like living on 1 or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. In the middle of summer in South Carolina, and just off goes our freaking power. She's just like a balloon, you know, and it's 98 degrees, and I'm like, God damn it! And so I'm trying to use like candles to make coffee in the morning, and it was like, I get where everyone's coming from, but where you put energy, everything changes. And so that this book did that for me. And the first principle in here, I don't know, there's more than just the first principle. You don't even get to it. But there's another quote, and it goes off of this. I decided that if I was to achieve what I desired, time and study were going to be required. So again, you can't just be like, okay, I want to be rich and wealthy. Here we go. Like, I've read this book 6 or 8 times. I've listened to it 4 or 5 times. I constantly am trying to put it back into my brain. Like, this is how it's done. And you have to put the effort in. You can't just be like, all right, well, I should get more money from the government this week. Like, what? They're going to give you more money to not save or to not spend, you know? And it's like, all right, well, and we'll get to your bills and budgets because that's all talked about in this book too. So before I get to that part, hold on. He really, what I like about him is, I like everything, but in the beginning, like 20 pages, he takes like 2 or 3 paragraphs to explain that this man that is now wealthy started off exactly the same as the men who were poor, right? He went to school with them when they were children. They had the same families. They did all this. So he really comes at it with like, look, this is a level playing field that we're operating on here. And if you're on this level playing field, you see how one can do this and the other can do this, right? Because for the mass, whether we want to admit it or not, the masses in this country are on a pretty even playing field for the most part. Again, I'm not saying that there's not that, right?
Yeah,
but for the most part, okay?
Yeah, well, obviously every individual instance or whatever is different, yes. But if we're taking, 75% of Americans as a whole,
right?
Yeah. Over that percentage, there's very small varying differences.
You're on a pretty level playing field. And what you'll find through this book is even if you're not on a level playing field, it's irrelevant because it's a principle. So maybe it takes you an extra 2 years or a year. Or, in my opinion, if that's where you're at and you're trying to work your way out of the depths of despair, as he says in the book, you have more motivation. Maybe you get there faster because the kid who's coddled and doesn't really have to doesn't work as hard. Because he just said that the harder you work and the more energy you put towards it, the faster it works.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So like
Mhm.
you have to change that perspective on where things are at. And I think we might have skipped over this part, but this was important too because he was setting the foundation. Yeah, yeah. So he says, in my youth, I looked about me and saw all the good things that were to bring happiness and contentment, and I realized that wealth increased the potency of all of these. So I believe that we have been conditioned. There's, man, this is what I'm talking about. There's so much in this book. We have been conditioned to want to be rich and be wealthy, but condemn it at the exact same time. Because you have to be noble and humble and be poor and be broke. Almost like it was built into our educational system because we never teach you how to acquire wealth. Because
Yeah, that is ridiculous, right?
yeah, it's complete insanity. But and if you want a prospering nation, like that doesn't even make sense. But that's a whole nother. We don't need to go there.
Like I don't think I was ever, and I'll say from like kindergarten to high school because not everyone goes to college, but even in college, not once did I take a class or even like a single lesson on like managing a checkbook, like
No,
managing my like finances, saving, investing, nothing,
nothing,
nothing.
not one. No.
And then you go right from from high school, and then if you do go to college, now 4 years later you're at a minimum $100,000 in debt. That's a minimum.
Right.
That's like being generous now, right? In
Right.
2020.
Yeah.
Oh, last day of 2020. Woo. But and that's $100,000 in debt is being generous, right? Because now schools are like what, 30, 40,000 a year.
Something.
So here you go. You're 22. You have a entry level position most likely, and you're $120,000 in debt. Like,
right. We just talked about the other day. We just talked about the other day where like I can get a loan for $100,000 to go to school, but I can't get a loan for $100,000 to go invest it in the stock market.
Yeah, because that's a risk.
Right. Like I have a better chance of making more money there than I do going to school. like I mean, it's crazy. So, but I think that this really sets the stage for the fact that there are nice things in the world.
Sure.
You deserve to have those nice things. You were literally made to experience them and have them, and it should be a part of your life, and it's not bad. I think that we condemn that way too much, right? And again, the same thing I've talked about before. I have a family member who, not this election, the last election, when the whole hoopla with Trump not paying taxes and whatever, and I don't follow it, so I don't give a shit, but nonetheless, apparently he didn't pay taxes. And I'm like, well, I highly doubt he just didn't pay taxes, whatever. So hear me out. So we're sitting there and I'm like, well, hold on a second. Like, you don't like him because he didn't pay taxes. And they're like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, okay. Well, what do you do at tax time? Well, I go to H&R Block. I'm like, okay. So you go to H&R Block, and what is the goal of that? To get as much of a tax return as I can. Cool. So you're condemning him because he just has better people than H&R Block to do that.
Yeah.
Like, that you can't do that. So there, another reason wealth, build more wealth, hire better people, get better service. I mean, it's accessible to everybody. You just have to work your way there.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Like, so I'm like, I don't condemn the guy for not paying taxes. I kind of want to sit down with him and have a cup of coffee and be like, so
how'd you do this?
like,
show me how.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I always, and again, myself included, everyone's got a little hypocrisy in them, right? So, like, you want to pay as little in taxes as you want, but,
I can spend my money.
If you don't like Trump, and understandably, he's a dislikable guy, some people love him, some people don't. But if you've already made up your mind that you dislike him, then yes, you're going to be pissed off that he paid like $700 in taxes.
I'm amazed.
However, yeah, I mean, look, that's
whether I like him or not.
To me, that's not his problem. Like, that's a fault in our tax system that allows someone who's as rich or wealthy as he says he is, to pay only $700 in taxes. Like, look at the system. That's the problem, not him. He just made it work to his advantage.
Correct, 100%. And so, learn these principles, and you can make the system work to your advantage too. I mean, it's no different, right? And it's funny because like these people who would want to condemn him, I'm like, well, in his situation, what are you going to do? You going to write a check for $6 million to the government? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like, let's be very honest with ourselves right now. Like, oh yes, United States government who doesn't teach me about money, you can spend it better than me. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that he talks in here about how you want it's normal to desire nice things. You want to have nice things. You want to be a part of it. And whatever a nice thing is, again, is independent to who that person is. Like you and I really want land. Like Christy and I were just talking about buying land west of where we are now because it's cheap.
Okay.
We don't want to live there, but we want to put our own personal gun range on it because the nicest outdoor gun range is an hour and a half for me.
Okay.
I don't want to spend 3 hours once a month or once a week driving to a gun range.
Yeah.
20 minutes west, buy 3 or 4 acres and build it up the way I want it. I can have my own personal gun range. I can go every single week, and it costs you, $30,000, $40,000 or whatever for a couple acres. Well, to me, that's the luxuries of life, right? But to somebody else, that might be a Mercedes Benz.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about this too. Sorry. I was going to bring up how people pay $400 a month for a Mercedes and how much that could be in the S&P 500.
And I think, but it all boils down to your values, right? We talked about values, and to me, like, I could give a rat's ass what kind of car I drive. I'm also like in the process now of looking for a new car because mine's about to explode, and. To me, like when I was asked, like, well, what do you want? And I was just like, honestly, I don't care. Like the most important things for me is that I want it to have like 4-wheel drive because I live in I wouldn't say mountainous, it's New Jersey, but it's a hilly region and we get a decent amount of snow during the winter.
Some type of hills.
Yeah, I mean, but they're not like Colorado mountain. They're bumps. Technically mountains, but they're large hills. So I want 4-wheel drive just because we get a decent amount of snow up here, blah, blah, blah. Like I need to get to work. And, I want to keep my, monthly payment in the ballpark of $200. Like I don't want to be spending $400 or $500 on a car payment because to me that's a waste. Like it doesn't matter. It gets me from point A to point B. It doesn't like make me a better person to have a better car. It doesn't mean I'm more important. In fact, when you drive around with your giant ass truck or whatever, I judge you. I think you're an idiot. But hey, that's just me.
I got good stories about this.
So again, it boils down to values. Like if that's what you want to invest your money in, if you want your big truck or your nice, Mercedes or your sports car, like go right ahead. That's your values. That's where you choose to spend your money, your finances. Go ahead. For me, my biggest goal now is I want to start accumulating. Like you said, you wanted to buy land. I'm more interested in like rental properties.
Okay.
I
don't want to deal with tenants.
I don't necessarily want to either. However, financially, it seems to me to make the most sense. People always need a place to live. So
I'm all in.
Yeah. No. I'm not like trying to like convince you. I'm explaining my line of thought.
Yeah.
People always need a place to live. So, unless you have a whole housing market crash like we did, which, can happen, I suppose, but it bounces back. Markets always come back.
Correct.
So property value always goes up, essentially. Then, on top of that, so not only are you investing your money in an asset that will increase in value long term, it's also giving you money month to month because now people are paying your rent. So you're basically, I wouldn't say doubling your money, but you're in one asset, you are now getting double returns, right? You're getting returns in value and you're getting actual liquid returns from the renters who are now giving you money. So to me, that is just, I'd rather spend my money and put my money in there than a savings account that's going to make 0.5% a year.
Right. No, it's a smart play for people. I just I'm trying. We worked really hard, and we're in a point where like I'm trying to bring things in that are ease into my life.
Sure.
And everybody I've talked to that has done that for 20, 30 years, that either that was their fundamental source of income or their quote side income. The headaches that I heard about personally with a child, and when you pop out your third, you may change your mind. I'm like, oh, that yes, it's just fine. Like that's where I'm at right now. Let's talk in 3 or 4 years. I may change my mind also, but there's something I wanted to bring up with you. So you talked about the cars, and so I'm very much an extremist, right? I'm either doing something or I'm not doing something. And you know that my wife does that, and so we needed a new car before coronavirus and all that stuff hit, which I wish I would have just waited. I wish I knew that this was kind of like the one time
right.
I would have just waited a month and then bought the car, but whatever. So my 2 vehicles that I'm going to own is a 1978 F-150. I think it's just gorgeous and I want it, but like you don't get finance for that because it's like a $15,000 truck. You just buy it, you know? And, so I'm going to have that, and then a Lamborghini. And there's an emotional attachment to the Lamborghini for me because when I was a child, I don't know if I told this story on there, but I remember seeing a Lamborghini in my hometown, and I was like, oh my God, there's more. Like there's more, and I want it. Literally what he talks about in here, right? So it was like this thing. So I have this emotional attachment to specifically Lamborghini. So I will own that also. Now, in between there, I literally don't give a fuck what I drive, right? So like we needed another car, and I was like, all right. I Googled like cheap, reliable cars or something. Like Honda Civic came up. Like, cool. I know a lot of people that have Honda Civics and they run forever.
Yeah.
Let me look up with the depreciation value, blah, 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 blah. And I would like called 2 dealerships. I'm like, I'll do nothing down, $200 a month. Do you want it or no? The one, gave me the whole run around. I'm like, cool, call me, change your mind. I don't, call the next one. They're like, we can do that. I'm like, all right, be there in an hour. I'm sitting there, like, do it. And she's like, what color do you want? I'm like, I literally can't explain to you how much I don't care. And she's like, what? I'm like, what color do you have? She's like, well, we definitely have a black one. I'm like, black it is. It's like, this was literally the easiest car sale I've ever had in my life. Again, I knew what I wanted to pay, what I was going to pay for the car, like whatever. And it was awesome. But one more thing. So when I worked for I worked for a trucking company for like 8 or 10 years. Okay. And I made really good money when I was working there, especially because I started when I was 18. And I worked basically amongst 40-year-old men. That was the town. I had to drive an hour to get there every day. And I started in high school, but it was like, stacks of applicants, whatever. The guy, football coach, he got me in, the terminal manager. So everybody that worked there had trucks or brand new Mustangs or like all of these things, right? And so then I got to know them and whatever. And like I found out like their car payment's like $450 a fucking month. Plus they live 20 minutes away. So they're like spending all of it. I'm like, you're spending 1 week's paycheck on your vehicle and the gas, plus your insurance. And they tried to like shit on me because I drove a red Cobalt that I paid cash for. And I'm like, dude, I get 30 miles to the gallon in this thing and I don't pay any money. Like I don't
I have no monthly payment.
I have no monthly payment and my insurance is like $100 a month. Like, who's the actual idiot here? Yeah. But whatever. They value.
Look, and that plays right into what we were talking about, what you were talking about in the beginning is here's a group of people that whether they were making $40,000 a year or $70,000 a year, were probably going to make the same decisions so that they were probably going to end up in the same place. Because to them, they valued a sports car where they were spending, like you said, ballparking a week's paycheck on just to pay the monthly payment and to get to and from work. Like to me, that's not an investment. That's an expense. Yeah. And That's not what I'm trying to accumulate. Like I am in a position where I am trying to. Sorry, I'm moving things around. I'm trying to accumulate assets, not
Right.
expenses.
Right.
Which is why, like, look,
You
I
can't
might
go
walk
buy a
into
house
the
and
car
go back.
dealership and be like, look, I'm looking for something with 4-wheel drive, and I want to spend $200 a month. I could probably put like $1,000 down. What do you have? And they might say nothing. I'd be like, okay, give me something
So
smaller.
you're
Like
right.
I don't care.
Right. And it's funny because I remember what you were going to say. Or I was going to say. No, we're on the same page with that, and I think that again, it's values, like we talked about before. But you have to understand the principles of money because, all right, let's say you and I both invest, right? We have an E-Trade account,
Sure.
whatever we invest. Let's say there's $10,000 in there, or for sake of argument, let's say there's $100,000 in there. And then
One day.
let's also say, yeah, then let's also say that I own 5 acres of land that I put a gun range on, worth $50,000. You own 2 rental properties, okay? Each one's worth $65,000 or something like that. We were like, all right, well, I want to go get a loan or I want to buy a house for my family because now I have 3 kids and it just doesn't work. And so I want a 5-bedroom house and it cost me $650,000 for this house because I'm buying 30 more acres of land with it, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't leverage your F-150 that you bought, you're paying $500 a month for to buy that. But what you can do is leverage your E-Trade account, your land, and you see what I'm saying? Like you can be, look, I have all these assets, like you
Yeah.
said.
Things of value. Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good for it. And they're gonna be like, oh, wow, okay, that makes sense. We could be like, oh, I got this brand new shiny F-150. The bank's gonna be like, oh god.
No, because you buy something like that, and as soon as you drive it off the lot, its value depreciates by like 50%. Like
That's
so,
how I bought my first motorcycle. Some dude drove the motorcycle off the lot, decided he didn't. I bought it, drove it off the lot, drove it home, drove it back the next day, so 43 miles on it, decided he wanted a different one. And I so happened to call the dealership that day. And the guy's like, I can't sell it for full price now because it's used. And I'm like, oh my God, it's a brand new motorcycle.
perfect. Yeah.
Grand, less than anyone else would have. It was awesome, dude. It was awesome. So, anyways, the next part, I'm almost wondering if maybe we should wait so you read
Give
it.
us a little taste.
Okay, hang on. I'll give you a little taste.
By the way, for anyone interested, it's very cheap, right? I think I got this for like $6 and change, and it's less than 100 pages. So you said it's an easy read. It's short. It's sweet. It's to the point. Like I'm hoping to knock this out in like a couple days.
You will. You definitely will. And it's awesome. Before I get to the other part, there's so he talks about in here, and I think it's important. He said, when I set a task for myself, I complete it. Therefore, I am careful not to set difficult and impractical tasks because I love leisure. So I think that's important too, because how often are people just setting goals or tasks or whatever, and they have a million of them going on? I used to do this, right? I used to just have too much going on. I couldn't do, then I got nothing done. And then I read this book, and it really sunk in, I don't know, 6th time, 5th time, 8th time, whatever. And it was like, holy cow, hold back. Focus on the ones that you want to focus on. Because it all gets brought up because he talks about willpower.
Sure.
And he says that, like someone mentioned willpower, and he's like, well, you're basically in control of it. He's like, I wouldn't say something like, if I'm walking, every time I walk past this lake, I'm going to pick up a stone and throw it in the lake every day for the next year. He goes, and then walk by the lake and just grab a handful and throw it in and be like, oh, I'm good for the year. He's like, no, I told myself I'm going to do something and I'm going to do it. Right. So like, I'm going to throw a stone in every single year or day for a year. And he's like, but because that isn't a logical thing to do, it would waste my time or whatever. I'm very careful not to set myself up for that. I'm not going to, you know what I mean? And he talks about, and I think it's, where does he say it? Hold on. So he talks about willpower and the stones, and don't make, in my opinion, right, don't make quick decisions based off of things. And then he says, how else will I have the confidence in myself to do important things? Because if you can't even complete the tasks that you set out for yourself, this is why it's so important. Again, this principle goes into everything in life. It goes into training. It goes into your love life. It goes into work, everything. If you set a task for yourself and you don't complete it, you're building momentum to not ever complete tasks, right? It's goals, the same thing. That's why we set goals for 12 months instead of I'm going to be a billionaire, right?
Yeah.
Or like,
yeah, there's a lot of steps in between where we're sitting today.
correct.
And yeah.
Right. Like I used to write one of my goals. I used to write, it was like, I drive a blue Lamborghini Aventador, right? And I started to realize like, that's so far down the road. I don't want to waste one of my goals on that right now. It's not a waste, right?
Yeah,
it's okay to have that. But it wasn't in my grasp of like I can actually do this, right? Like I didn't feel like I could make it happen. And I don't want to have 10 goals like that because I'm building no momentum and no confidence, which is why I like how now you and I actually, now that we're talking about this is coming to me now. I like how you started doing ISOs and I actually started doing the same thing. I used to go straight right the extremes, right? I like to live in that extreme. I used to go straight to the 5 minutes. And after a few weeks, like I would just get so beat down because I wasn't accomplishing my goal, right? And like you will only go for so long throwing a stone into the river. But if you start at a minute and then you work up to 2 and then, like you're gaining momentum, you're gaining confidence, and then you have more confidence in yourself throughout the day. Again, the progressive principle. Here it is. Like it's not just training. It's in life. It's in finances. It's in all of these things. So that's another huge part. He covers so much in the beginning of like principles of life, again, that you weren't ever taught.
Well, I mean, that seems, I know we've said this a billion times, but that's essentially what each one of our little podcasts boils down to, right? It's identifying your principles and your values and then acting on them.
Yep. And then changing them if you want.
Yeah.
Because you can't change them if you don't know what they currently are.
It's very true. Yeah. No, it's very awesome. And not to get a little sidetracked, but you mentioned the ISOs. I'm doing the split squats again. 5-minute split squats. I'm actually going to film them and post them so no one can deny. Yeah, dude.
Big time.
Ready for
Big time. You got to tag Tommy. He's going to be proud.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I should. Yeah.
Yeah. I need to. I'm joining that barbell.
Okay. Yeah.
Barbell. They'll have one of those, and if they don't, I'm going to just buy them one. Like one of the things that Tommy has.
Oh, wow. What does he have?
But basically, it's like for split squats.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's got like the little thing. You put your like foot under it, and it's also I think you can use it for like glute hams from the floor. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Like so, they either have one or I'm gonna buy them one.
I'm sure they either do. I'm actually my next like gym purchase is because we've got a Rogue squat rack, which might be the greatest thing I've ever purchased.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was like $500, which is pretty affordable when it comes to something that's going to now last me for the rest of my life. However, I have to figure out how I'm going to move it from here when we eventually move. But I'll figure that out when we get there. But they have a little, it's like a padded attachment. It's kind of like what you're talking about with Tommy. I'm assuming it's freestanding on the floor, right?
Yeah.
I think people use it a lot for like sissy squats where you put your feet in and it kind of like supports you and you can like squat, like almost sit back, but it like keeps you from like falling over, maybe. So this is just like, it's a single attachment that you can just put right into the rack. So that's, it's like $75 or whatever. So it's going to be my next purchase. And I'm pretty super pumped because right now I use a bench, which is fine, but it's not like ideal. I mean,
well, I currently just do lunges because I belong to LA Fitness, and it's the most useless gym I've ever belonged to in my entire life. Besides aesthetically, there's beautiful women there. I
went to one in Atlanta once, and that was enough. It's a bunch of juice balls walking around. Like,
dude, there's a sign for steroids. I'm like, I've been to gyms where there's people that are way more roided out than LA Fitness, and there's still a sign for steroids. I'm like, this is awesome. But
But
this barbell place, it basically sounds like I read the description and I'm like, oh, that's something Len and I would do. It's like 3 dudes that were just like, we just like to train, so we bought a space and come train with us.
here's some space, here's some equipment, come lift some stuff.
Yeah, don't be an idiot.
Give us $30 a month.
Yeah, so I'm like, next month I'm again, because I don't want to waste money, right? Principles that you learn. Like I'm at LA Fitness until the 4th of February, so I'm waiting until then.
Okay.
But that's when I'm going to get into the split squats, because right now I currently just do lunges. Well, not just do lunges; they're equally fucking god.
Yeah, no, I would. To be honest, I might even argue that they're tougher. The lunges.
I'll tell you in a few months. Because my plan is to get to 5 minutes consistent with the lunges, join this gym, and then go to split squats.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
You do the opposite. But
so I think what I'm eventually gonna do is go once I might not be that far off because I'm knocking out these split squats, but is to start going right now. I'm rear foot elevated, front foot flat, is to go up on a toe.
Yeah.
And that sounds terrible, but maybe after like a month I'll get there.
Occasionally I'll be doing my lunge.
Ease myself into that one.
Yeah. Occasionally I'll do a lunge and I'll be like super uncomfortable and I'm like trying to like figure out how to like
Fidget.
make myself not uncomfortable, right? And I'll like raise my right heel and I'll go, nope. Drop that bitch so quick.
It's terrible. I immediately regret this decision.
Terrible idea. What was I going to tell you? So,
I don't know, what were we talking about? Cars, LA Fitness, gym,
cars, fitness,
gun range.
money, gun ranges.
That actually sounds like a great idea, especially for where you are.
It is because I want to continue. Like we're not far from the beach, right? But I want to continue to get closer to the beach. Like the end goal for us is that I wake up every day and I open the doors and I'm on the beach, right?
Shit.
Yeah,
not a bad goal.
No. Well, that doesn't really help you in terms of like land because we'll probably live a semi-high rise, but Delray doesn't really have high rise.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like accumulating amounts of land, yes, but your property value is going to be through the roof.
Well, either way, we're going to we're thinking we're going to go with a condo instead of a house because like on A1, their houses are like $33 million and they have like 40 bedrooms. Like, I don't want a 40-bedroom house. Like,
it's a bit much for a family of 3.
Right. There's 3 of us. We're not having any more. People come visit, so a 3-bedroom condo is just fine.
Yeah.
Like whatever. So we're going to get a 3-bedroom condo. Those aren't dropping in price either. Like, it's still...
No, yeah. Like I said,
goddamn ocean.
People need places to live, right? There's always more. Every day there's more people in the world, and there's the same amount of places to live.
Right.
So, yeah, buying land and buying, homes, like they're just going to increase because there's more demand than there is, supply.
And so then, like having this gun range is just like for people who don't know, I used to hunt a lot out of it because I had kids and I played football and then I, just worked and went to school and whatever. So I like put it on the back burner. Now I'm getting back into it. But there's an archery range here. It's an indoor archery range, but it only goes 20 yards. That's not far enough. Like I need to be able to do the things I do. So I'm like, all right, there's a problem. So I'm going to come up with a solution. And like I was joking the other day, watch this become something. Like it's going to become a business because like there's a need.
Yeah.
And I'm filling it, and here you go. Like it's gonna, but it's really, that's not the end goal. The end goal is like I want a place that I can sight my rifle in from anywhere from 50 to 300 yards, and then I want a handgun range, and then I want my archery range, and that's it. Leave me alone. Like I'm gonna go do it when I want to do it. So, anyways, yeah, I'm super excited about that like in the future. So before we sign off, this will be like our teaser. I feel like there's so much more I wanted to tell you, but this will be like our teaser then for next week is the principle that it follows is a part of all Aaron is mine to keep. That's the end goal of the first one. And I don't want to get into that because I have personal stories with how difficult that was at first and stuff like that. So I think it's important to like, let's wait. And by then you'll probably be at that part because it's not a hard read.
Mhm.
So a part of all iron is mine to keep is going to be a legit thing. So
Yeah,
that's
man.
that. But I don't remember what else we were talking about because I feel like there's something else. I'm going to send you a voice recording in like 5 minutes. Motherfucker.
No, I dig it, man. And yeah, I think we should make a little series out of this. So as each week you can kind of like shed a little more light on what you've read, understood from the book, blah blah blah. I'm gonna start reading this eventually. Like I said, I'm trying to finish my book by this weekend. So hopefully I'll be starting reading this next week, and then I can collaborate a little bit more here. But
Yeah.
yeah,
No, it's going to be good.
I'm excited for it.
Is let's do it, or what we're going to do is we'll do it, and then I'll be able to talk because we've been putting a lot of these strategies together, and now we're kind of like at the next phase on how I did it. And then I think we should do is next year at this time we should literally loop back around it again, so that we can see where we're like you can then speak on like look what it did for me in a year.
Yeah,
like, because you already have a lot of these principles built into you. Like you understand the progressive principle. You do things slowly. You don't make rash decisions. Like it's not going to be hard for you to implement this in your life.
Mhm.
And in 12 months, and you may already implement some of it, but regardless.
Yeah. Well, I'll find out in a week. But yeah, no, it's cool. I actually like that idea because I already have like 2 books that are on like my every year I reread because every year I reread them and I get something else out of them.
This and The Alchemist are for me.
This what?
This and The Alchemist are the 2 I read.
The Alchemist. So this might be the 3rd one, but I also read The Art of War every year and the Tao Te Ching, which are 2. What's up?
I've never read either one of those.
So it's not to open up a whole other box of worms here. I'll go quickly here, but the reason why I read them is they're 2 very different kind of philosophies. The Tao Te Ching is very, accepting of things around you, like blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And the Art of War is basically using your environment to your advantage. So the reason why I read them back to back, and I'll like flip flop. So like this year, I'll read like the Tao Te Ching first, and then I'll read the Art of War, and then next year I'll read the Art of War first, and whatever.
Yeah.
That's for me. But and every year, again, nothing changes. It's a book, right? So nothing changes. Right. But every year, I have a year's more experience. I have a year's more of growth, knowledge, whatever. And now I can take it and apply it to this. And like I said, it's something that I have liked to do. I've probably done it the last 3 or 4 years now.
Well, I'll read both of them this year. That'll be on my new list of things to do.
Yeah, dude. And
what you said there, though, there's again principles of everything. Your philosophy on life has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Your viewpoint from the world has changed. Your set point has changed, right? So that's like what happens with finance. It's like your set point. Someone's set point when they're broke is like, I'll accept $7 an hour pay. Let's just say, right?
Sure.
You have nothing. $7 an hour is a lot of fucking money, right?
Yeah.
Well, then now you've made $7 an hour. You've saved. You've done these things. You've built skill sets. You've done stuff. Well, now $14 an hour is acceptable. So now your set point has changed, right? Like you wouldn't even consider going to work for $7 an hour, right?
Yeah.
Well, now $14 an hour. Now you've developed those skills and those assets, and you've kept learning and you've kept doing, and now all of a sudden it's $42 an hour. Now, if someone offered you $30 an hour, you would literally laugh at them.
Like, yeah, you say no.
Right?
Yeah. No, that's it.
The set point changes all the time. And so as that set point changes, your view changes, right? Like the view of the ocean, we're not getting the first floor.
Yeah.
I want to be up there looking at the motherfucking ocean, like so that's set. Everything looks better from up top, and so that's the same thing. And as that set point changes, you literally get more out of everything, right? 2 people can read the same book and get completely different meanings out of it because of your values.
Yeah, dude. Values, experience, whatever.
Yep.
All right, man.
All right, dude. I gotta scoot.
Go be daddy.
Yep.
All right. I will see you next week. Happy New
Year.
Next year.
Come say hi to Uncle real quick.
Where is she? Sloaney.
Hi, Uncle Len.
Hi, Sloan.
Uncle Len watched. I sent Uncle Len the video of just destroying that steak the other day.
It was fantastic. I'm very proud. Little bear cub.
Bare hands and all, gnawing at it. All right. Bye, everybody. Have a good year.
Bye, Len.